Yeah. 3-6, mafia.
Yeah.
Whoa. Hey. Yeah. Whoa.
Say what? 3-6 mafia. It's going down. Y'all know what time it is. We ain't playing with you. In the club, in the street. Y'all know what time it is. Get ready for it. Strong man alive. Waiting to be wet. Step up, bring it. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into another live edition of No BS Season 2, Episode 8, underway on this Friday, September 18th, 2020, alongside Trevor Williams, Isaiah Leung, and the fourth member of the No BS team, our buddy Furman the Laker League. Cal McClure joining you folks here in San Diego, California from the home studio. Trevor, Isaiah, good to see you guys, and more than anything else, Furman, welcome aboard. But Trevor, good to see you, man. How we doing tonight? Good to see you.
Pretty excited. I'm ready to defend Baker Mayfield today. So, y'all doubted him yesterday, but he came to play. So I can't wait for us to talk about the Bengals and Browns game as our first topic today. So I'm excited about defending Baker today.
It's Defend Baker Day for Victory Friday for the Cleveland Browns. Also joining us tonight, folks, from the backyard studio, Isaiah Leung up in the Bay Area. Isaiah, good to see you, bud. How we doing?
I'm doing good, Callan. I hope you guys are all doing good. I am back in the backyard. The sky has finally cleared up. We've got blue sky for what it seems like the first time in forever. But it's great to have blue sky back. It's good to have the air quality all cleared up. Prayers down for the people down in Southern California, as I know the fires are still burning down there. But, man, it's good to be back. I got my Lakers jersey on, repping the purple and gold as they get ready to face the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. And also, I got the world's best coffee in my hand right now. McDonald's Colombian coffee. You guys should also go try it. It's $1 any side. It's perfect. But other than that, man, I'm doing good, Callan. How about you guys?
And the food streak continues 2 minutes and 35 seconds into the show. Go figure. Also, folks, as mentioned, we made this announcement too when we, in fact, announced the revamped lineup. But we have a fourth member now of our No BS team. That is the one and only Furman Lee also joining us. Furman, good to see you. Good to hear you, buddy. How we doing tonight? And more than anything else, welcome aboard, man.
Hey, thanks, guys. Good to see all three of you guys. I'm glad to join No BS as a newest member. I got the Lakers and Denver live right now, and I'm really excited for this team. They're up by 9, and I can't wait to talk about these guys. And also really excited for the Miami Heat. If we're going to get onto that, I'm going to have a lot to say.
We have plenty, folks, dialed up today. And again, folks, we thank you all very much for joining us today. Wanted to first kind of do a bit of house cleaning or a bit of a follow-up to what we had talked about, folks, in regards to the recent viewership of the program. And I can tell you, folks, that last night's Wild Sports Talk episode surpassed 600 views in just over 2 days. So thank you all very much for tuning in on Wednesday and for, again, all your valued and continued support here for all of us here on the 6th. And again, we more than anything else also thank Ryan Schreiner of Fan Response for joining us on Wednesday evening to talk all things going on in the wide world of sports. But of course, folks, we invite your input, your questions, your comments, your concerns, hot takes, loony takes, cold takes, you name it. We'll put it up on screen. And again, we'll also be running some periodic questions throughout the program for you guys to also chew on and decipher as well. With that, Trevor, it is Victory Friday for the Cleveland Browns, holding off the Bengals last night. And a very great game played by the Browns, 35-30. In a battle of quarterbacks who I think a lot of people have seen struggle, at least, of course, Joe Burrow, first-time player, of course, in his rookie season. Of course, Baker Mayfield, our man John Mathis, Trevor has said for the longest time, this is a make-or-break season for Baker Mayfield. I think he proved a lot of people wrong last night and also got a lot of other guys involved, Austin Hooper, Odell Beckham Jr. Their defense looked great. The running game actually showed up last night. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt looking spectacular last night. Trevor, I know that you had touted Baker as the MVP during our prediction show a couple weeks ago. And last night, certainly, though, man, looked like a step in the right direction. But as I had said, though, man, earlier this morning, is that now I'd like to see Cleveland do this consistently, not once every 4 games when you're losing 3 or 4 in a row after winning a game or having a performance like this. I like to see Baker Mayfield and the Browns, for that matter, keep this momentum going. Don't stop now, but keep winning games, keep playing good football. But Trevor, give us your reaction to the Browns pulling out a 35-30 victory over the in-state rival Cincinnati Bengals last night.
Well, me personally, the Browns really stepped it up. They showed the world that they can actually win a football game and not go 0-2 in like forever. So Baker came out to play, and it was phenomenal what he ended up doing. He made it like a team effort from start to finish. Got Nick Chubb involved. The run game was solid. Nick Chubb ran for 124 yards with 2 touchdowns. A very productive night for him. And Baker Mayfield ended up throwing for 219 and completing 16 for 23, which is not bad in like completion percentage. So fantastic night in that. 1 interception though, like it happens in those types of games. But the Browns really, stepped it up and showed the world that they're ready. Next week they got Washington, so they can roll into the next week being 2-1. And then the true test is when they face the Cowboys. If they're able to beat the Cowboys, it kind of locks in my faith that Baker could become a league MVP if he has a good game and be able to win against the Cowboys. But Joe Burrow, on the other hand, his night wasn't that bad. Like, we all know the Bengals offensive line is not the greatest. So he was making awful passes, being rushed like crazy, but he still ended up dropping 316 passing yards with 3 touchdowns. That's not a bad night for a rookie quarterback. Then again, it's still rookie numbers, so we got to see what he ends up developing later down the line. But that's what I ended up having. I think Joe Burrow has a chance to actually become an elite quarterback at some point in time. It's probably not going to be on the Bengals because they're literally giving him no love on the offensive line, but we'll see what ends up going to happen in games down the line.
Isaiah, I think I need to eat some humble crow for picking against Cleveland last night in this game, because I just kind of felt like that if something would have went wrong for the Browns last night, it would have been boom goes the dynamite for Cleveland, because we have seen this team, Isaiah, so many times hit that self-destruct button when things aren't going right, whether it's Mayfield throwing temper tantrums, OBJ throwing temper tantrums. And last night, man, really I think showed, though, that Cleveland can be for real if they would play this kind of football every single game, not get blown out one week and not, have disgruntled players or pouty faces on the sidelines when guys aren't getting the football. And last night proved, though, that they can be good if they would only, in my mind, play consistent football every week. And again, Isaiah, further, I think, though, Trevor's on a great point, though, Isaiah, because Joe Burrow, I saw him get absolutely leveled on the goal line last night, dropping back for a pass after Cleveland had turned the ball over from the 1-yard line, could not get the ball in the end zone, and they got the ball right back. And also last night, I think a very big turning point was the missed timeout and muff snap that Burrow was calling for a timeout, and the snap was inadvertently snapped to him, and he wasn't obviously there. He was calling timeout or trying to call timeout, and that ball went 25 or 30 yards deep back in their own territory and went from 3rd and 2 to 4th down and 28. So, Isaiah, a lot of mistakes made more so by the Bengals, and even a team like the Browns will capitalize on bad mistakes like that. But, Isaiah, general reaction to this game in regards to the Browns taking this one over the in-state rivals last night from First Energy Stadium in Cleveland?
I got to agree with Trevor. This was a much-needed bounce-back performance for Baker Mayfield, Kevin Stefanski, and the entire Cleveland Browns organization. Because last week, after they got destroyed by the Baltimore Ravens, you were hearing a lot of commotion mostly from the fan base that Baker Mayfield, he sucks. Let's tank and go get Trevor Lawrence. Kevin Stefanski is an awful coach. He deserves to be fired. And there was just a lot of panic from the fan base, but this game and this performance by the Cleveland Browns, I believe, should really calm this fan base down a bit. Baker Mayfield, as Trevor mentioned earlier, looked fantastic in this game. I know that the Bengals have by far the worst defense in the NFL, but he was supposed to come out and do this against this atrocious Bengals defense. He put up 16 for 23, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. And most importantly, he looked really, really confident in this new offense that Kevin Stefanski and the Cleveland Browns are running. And I think you have to really credit Kevin Stefanski for finally opening up the playbook and running what he ran last year in Minnesota, which was a lot of the bootlegs that allowed Baker to throw on the run. And also Kevin Stefanski came to his senses and started feeding his two-headed monsters in Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb had 22 carries for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Kareem Hunt, he had 10 carries for 86 yards and a touchdown. So they both were really, really effective. And I just think that using those 2 running backs really helped take the load off Baker Mayfield, which let him play freely and let him play loose and just let him play his game, and which really, really helped Baker Mayfield in this football game. And, I want to talk about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, fellas, I've been really harsh on Joe Burrow ever since he was at LSU. I just didn't believe that he was going to translate over to the NFL because the offense he played at in LSU, that spread offense, those guys that play that spread offense, they never, ever translate to the NFL. So I was really skeptical of Joe Burrow, and I still am skeptical of Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow looked really good last night. He was 37 for 61, threw for 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. I know a lot of those yards came in garbage time, but still, he looked very confident, looked very poised, didn't really go down when that fumble, as you mentioned, Callan, happened. But I'm still kind of on the fence about Joe Burrow because, he's playing in a notoriously cheap organization that never spends money in free agency. So I don't trust this. Yeah, I don't trust this Bengals organization to spend any money in free agency to help that offensive line, which desperately needs help. And also, I don't trust this organization to spend money on defense, which desperately needs help. So if I'm Joe Burrow, I really don't believe Joe Burrow will be a Cincinnati Bengal in 5 years, to tell you the truth, because this organization, they're just cheap. They don't spend money, and I don't think they will be able to help him out in any way.
Furman, what do you think about the game last night? And I think Joe Burrow has shown promise. And again, I was really mainly only went with Cincinnati in this game because I thought that Joe Burrow had, in a way, kind of already maybe proven a couple people, maybe not Isaiah, but other people on the fence, though, that he could lead a drive like he did against the LA Chargers last week until it came down to Randy Bullock missing that 31-yard game-tying field goal, but that he had shown some small promise. Now, yes, though, it's a rookie season, probably a freebie, time for him to get his feet wet and, of course, try to work through that very skeptical offensive line for the Bengals. And as I said, though, more so I think the turning point of that ball game, fellas, was that muff snap where, again, Joe's trying to call timeout, turn his attention away from the play in the center, and inadvertently snaps that football, and it goes 25, 30 yards deep, and they're back in their own territory, and they go from 3rd down and a makeable 1 or 2 to 4th down and 28 on that missed play. So, Furman, overall thoughts on the game yesterday? As mentioned, the Browns beating the Bengals 35-30.
Yeah, before I start, so I like to say prayers going out to CJ Uzomah. I wish him the best for his recovery. That was not an easy injury to watch as the audience. So hopefully recovery suits him well. And I hope that he uses this time to get rested and also come back stronger. So moving on, I'm going to start with the Browns first. So I picked the Bengals. I picked the Bengals to win over the Browns yesterday, because I thought the Browns just really collapsed as a team when they played the Ravens. But, boy, I was wrong. The Browns, they really showed their talent yesterday and why they were the dominant team. And I also got to see the Bengals defense really struggle in coverage and also bringing pressure to Baker Mayfield. I thought Baker Mayfield played great. I know the Bengals defense is probably one of the worst in the league, but Baker Mayfield, he was really calm and really confident yesterday, and he was able to throw a lot of darts. I remember this one throw he had to Odell Beckham for a touchdown, and that really amazed me. That really showed me that Baker Mayfield is not just an average quarterback that is looked down by everyone. He really does have the talent, and if you can build around him, and especially if Odell and Baker Mayfield can build that chemistry, they're going to become a really dominating offense. And I also saw how the Browns were really able to utilize the run game. I felt like the Bengals, like I said, their defense was just not there yesterday, and in the second half, all the Browns did was just run the ball every play after every play, and the Bengals defenders, they just missed like every tackle against Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Like that was why Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb were able to get so many yards after contact. Like it was crazy. So overall, the Browns offense played really well. They stuck to the game plan, and I think this is definitely their comeback game to show everyone else in the league that they're not a team that's below average. They've got the talent around them, and their offense looked really stellar last night. And I also want to say that the Browns defense was also really good. They've got a lot of defensive linemen that they've invested in, especially with like Myles Garrett. These guys brought a lot of pressure to Joe Burrow yesterday. And even if Joe Burrow's offensive line is not the best right now, I think the Browns have proven that they're also a strong defensive unit. They came out aggressive, and they made Joe Burrow look like a rookie quarterback at times. And that's exactly what you'd expect to see from the Cleveland Browns with all that talent around them. It doesn't matter how much the Bengals scored that game. I know they scored 30, but I felt like that was mostly garbage time. But still, they kept the momentum on offense and defense and pretty much controlled the entire game. So moving on to the Bengals, I saw the Bengals, they have a lot of potential. And I know Isaiah said that this team doesn't like to invest in a lot of their players. And I feel like that's their main liability. Their defense was definitely really disappointing yesterday. They couldn't make tackles. They missed every tackle. They allowed all these long runs. And also, every time I saw the Browns running play action, there's always guys that's being left wide open on the field. It's just honestly a mess. And I honestly feel bad for Joe Burrow because it seems as if he might have to take the blame for the loss because his offense couldn't produce as much, scores or yardage as the Browns. But you got to look at it both ways. So, and the Browns for the Bengals offensively, their offensive line has struggled, and Joe Burrow did not have time to throw. I thought this was a great performance by Joe Burrow. However, the fact that the head coach Zach Taylor the fact that Zach Taylor gave Joe Burrow a lot of confidence as a rookie quarterback to stay in the game to throw 61 pass attempts is astounding. I think this is crazy how Burrow just stayed in the game all poised and confident, regardless of all the pressure and hits that he's been taking, and also the muff snap he had at the beginning of the game. So I think Burrow has the potential to, unlike what you guys said, I think he has the potential to stay with the Bengals long term if they build around him. The offense looked really promising, and they also have pieces around him. Like they've got a bunch of good receivers: T. Higgins, John Ross, AJ Green, and Tyler Boyd. And if all they have to do is just provide Joe Burrow a few more seconds of protection, they're gonna have a really elite offense coming out. So the last point I would like to make is I'm really disappointed in AJ Green. Yesterday, I think he was really like a sellout to Joe Burrow. He's 32 years old and he's washed up. And I saw him drop a lot of passes, and also he wasn't able to make the contested one-on-one catches that he usually makes off Andy Dalton in the past. He's still their number one receiver, and if Joe Burrow is going to continue to rely on him, even if Joe Burrow's even if his throws are slightly off, he's going to have to understand AJ Green's going to have to still make those tough catches as a number one receiver. So moving on to weeks 3 and 4, I think the Bengals have to look more into Tyler Boyd as their number one receiver instead of AJ Green. I feel like he's a bit too washed up right now, and if their offensive game plan kind of varies to Joe Burrow's likeness, more in the fact that he likes to prioritize slot receivers and tight ends, I think their offense can open up and really show Joe Burrow's real potential to close out games.
Trevor, my dad's a Bengals fan by virtue of the Chargers no longer being in San Diego, so we all have moved on to new organizations to give our NFL support to. And my dad's biggest fear is a lot like a lot of you guys, and I think myself as well, is Joe Burrow is bound to have one hit just totally knock him out of the game because of how shaky this offensive line is right now. Trevor, would you agree more so? And I think it goes more so to Isaiah's point, though, about the Bengals kind of in a way being very cheap, very skeptical to spend money on players and, kind of just go with what they got. Trevor, do you agree with that point perhaps, or what do you think?
I agree, because at this point, this offensive line is not really caring for Joe Burrow that much. It's like, as soon as the ball is snapped, the pocket's already collapsing. He's already scrambling, but he has wide receivers that hit the ball too, but he's forced to get rid of the ball less than a split second once it snaps. So you literally is sitting in shotgun majority of the game to give him that extra time to at least get the ball off if he's trying to pass. But I think they're going to need to come up with a better game plan if there's no offensive line. He may become a scrambling quarterback until they develop an offensive line that can provide him a few extra seconds so he can become a passing quarterback, which he's really extremely good at, because based on his numbers that we've seen so far in the first 2 weeks, he can pass the ball all day long and produce great numbers. He just needs more time, and his completing for his passes will definitely go up. And we can also see that his fourth quarter drives are like one of those veteran quarterbacks going up and down the field. But if he doesn't have the offensive line, those drives literally mean nothing at this point in time. So I think they need to end up developing a line that can give him more time or make him a scrambling quarterback, though he's not, but he has the ability to run. We saw in the Chargers game, his first touchdown was him running into the end zone. So it is possible for Joe Burrow to scramble at his high rate of speed and his accelerativeness in general. So I think they're going to need to switch that over at some point.
Isaiah, we'll go to you now as we talk about the hometown San Francisco 49ers as they head to or take on the New York Jets this weekend on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. And, of course, Isaiah, the Niners upset by the Arizona Cardinals at home this past Sunday by virtue of just a lot of factors, and mainly with Jimmy Garoppolo underthrowing one of his receivers late in the game where it could have perhaps given the Niners the lead. Maybe they could have won this ball game kind of in walk-off fashion. But, Isaiah, the main question is what do the Niners have to do on Sunday versus the Jets to avoid going 0-2 in your mind?
All right, so before I give what the Niners have to do, let me just say this. If the 49ers lose this Sunday to the worst team in the NFL, and that is the New York Jets, I honestly don't even know I'm going to be able to show up on Monday for Wild Sports Talk, given how disgusted I will be. So I'm just warning all of our audience out there, you might not see me on Wild Sports Talk if the Niners lose to the Jets. But what the 49ers need to do on Sunday, Callan, Furman, and Trevor, is that they got to first establish the run against the New York Jets. Because last week, the Buffalo Bills ran rough sod all over the New York Jets in that first half, with Josh Allen and Devin Singletary leading the way, which led them to then open up the passing game, which they clearly dominated the Jets because the Jets didn't have any corners and any pass rush to stop Josh Allen. The 49ers need to follow the same recipe the Bills used on offense, and I believe it will take a lot of pressure off of Jimmy Garoppolo, and it will just let him play freely and be very confident. And if the 49ers can do that, establish the run, which we were just talking about earlier with Baker Mayfield, if you establish the run, you will put less pressure on your quarterback to have to air it out and sling it, and then he will have a lot of success. So the 49ers need to do that. I believe if they do that, Jimmy Garoppolo will have a great day against that extremely weak Jets defense. And the second thing the 49ers have to do on Sunday is Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, and the defensive staff need to bench Solomon Thomas and insert Javon Kinlaw as our primary defensive tackle in the middle. Solomon Thomas last week and throughout his entire NFL career thus far has not been able to get any push whatsoever on the defensive line. I believe that it's time to put the kibosh on the Solomon Thomas experiment and bench him and put Javon Kinlaw in as the starter going forward. Javon Kinlaw last week in his first ever NFL game, he was absolutely mauling people out there. This dude was getting so much push that Arizona had to put double teams on him and even a triple team at one point in that game. Like, that's just how great Javon Kinlaw was doing in that game. And let's not forget, he's doing this as a rookie, which is spectacular. If Javon Kinlaw can do what he did last week, it will allow Nick Bosa and D Ford to get a ton of pressure from the outside because they won't be double teamed as much because Javon Kinlaw will be taking all the double teams on the inside. So the 49ers have got to start Javon Kinlaw. Javon Kinlaw, I believe, is the key that is going to unlock that pass rush that was non-existent last Sunday.
So, Trevor, again, the Niners face off with the Jets, both teams coming off of losses in week 1 of the NFL season. And, of course, the Niners, I think, should have won that game if it wasn't for perhaps another mismanaged last drive by Jimmy Garoppolo in this ball game in regards to, again, we showed the video last week or recently the video of the muff pass that hit Patrick Patterson, I believe, of the Cardinals in the top of his dome. That, of course, ended that drive for San Francisco. So, Trevor, what honestly do you think has to be done by San Francisco to win this game coming up against the Jets on Sunday?
Basically is score more points than the other team. That's easier said than done. But, I think the 49ers just need to have more of like an offensive presence. Like their offense was good and all, but at the same time, Jimmy G's passing rating, it was atrocious. It was 19 for 33. That's not really good when you're looking at a quarterback. Though he had 2 touchdowns and threw for 200, almost 260 yards, but still, that passing rating is going to hurt you in the long run when you play against quarterbacks that have a higher percentage rating than that. Like they normally could end up going like 16 for 23 for like Baker Mayfield, for example. But like you're going 19 for 33. That's almost like a 66% chance of like your passes being dropped. So it's not being dropped, being completed. So that's not really good in that sense. But I think everything else, like the receiving core, not bad. A lot of the people got, 4 receptions to like 1. So at least got good targeting. Rushing wasn't too dominant because like no one cracked over 100 yards. So Raheem Morris had 15 carries with 56 yards, 0 touchdowns. So they need to step up the run game because that's what the 49ers are really known for. So if they can establish that run game, it can open up the play action and really dominate the Jets in this game. So I think if the 49ers working more play action and establish the run game, they should be fine in this one.
Furman, I feel like that the Niners, if they could just find a way to close out ball games or finish off a drive like what they had on Sunday, they could be a very good or if not better ball club down the stretch or as the year progresses. And you look at the Super Bowl and that drive that goes up in flames and this one on Sunday, it's 2 very, I think, mismanaged game-ending drives that they really practically, in my mind, had over the course of Sunday, then, of course, in the Super Bowl versus KC last season. So, Furman, where exactly do you think what area do you think is of most emphasis for San Francisco as they, in fact, try to win and go to 1-1 on the year as they take on the Jets this Sunday?
All right, so this is against the Jets. And I have to agree with Isaiah and Trevor here. You just need a simple game plan. And Kyle Shanahan already has it. It's a run-heavy game plan filled with play actions. Last week, they played the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are statistically, or actually historically, they've been a tough team for the 49ers in the past 2-3 years. Even last year, like we won both games against them, but they were really close games. We had to close out those games. And given that the Cardinals have more offensive weapons right now, I wouldn't consider the Cardinals as a below tier type of team. I think these guys are above average. And looking at the Jets this week, I think this is one of the worst teams in the NFL. And in terms of closeout, yes, the 49ers and Jimmy G especially has to work out on that. But against the Jets, I don't see any closeout opportunities for 49ers. It's just a simple game plan against the Jets. And the key to this game plan is just 0 turnovers. I think the offense will get going really well against this Jets D as long as you just keep running the ball, and also you just keep letting Jimmy G get out of the pocket for those play action passes and just burn the defense and just keep running it down and overwhelming the Jets. That's all you have to do. And in the red zone, just don't turn the ball over. I think this game is going to remind me of the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the 49ers last year. The 49ers had like 5 turnovers in their red zone, but they still won the game. So, and the Steelers' offense was atrocious. Their defense was also very bad. I think this is kind of like the similar game plan for the 49ers against the Jets. As long as you have no turnovers offensively, I don't see any issues against the Jets. Defensively, I think that's their biggest strength right now. But of course, we're going to have to deal with a few injuries that are going to probably be a little significant, a bit significant. D Ford, I hope this guy's healthy. He gets hurt like every 2 games or every 2 practices, but I just hope he just gets healthy enough to play on the edge rushing side against the Jets this week. Also, we lost Richard Sherman to an Achilles scare. I hope that our corners also step it up and take the place of Richard Sherman against the Jets. Other than that, I don't see any issues with the 49ers getting an easy dub here, like I've said before. And one thing I like to add on is Solomon Thomas. Isaiah pretty much mentioned everything already. Solomon Thomas, he needs to prove his worth as a first-round 3rd pick for the 49ers. You need to generate more pressure, and especially if you're going to be a starter right now, you're going to have to prove yourself. We've already declined your 5th-year option, and I know you might struggle with a lot of mental adversity on and off the field, but you've got to get your job done. We need you to prove yourself as like a first rounder and why we drafted you this early to play for us. So yeah, that's all I have for the 49ers.
One quick injury note, folks. Per reports gathered from CBS Sports, George Kittle ruled out for this game against the Jets. That is a report gathered, as mentioned, from CBS Sports earlier in the day. Isaiah probably wants to clarify, but that's the report that we have right now. Isaiah, what do you got for us, bud?
Yeah, George Kittle is going to be out this Sunday with the knee sprain. So for all you fantasy players out there that have Brandon Ayuk, the 49ers first-round pick in this NFL draft, start him, because I believe that he's going to have a monster day, because it's going to be him and Kendrick Bourne as the main receiving weapons for Jimmy Garoppolo, and the Jets secondary is complete garbage.
So again, folks, once more, George Kittle, per reports gathered from CBS Sports, ruled out for this game between the Niners and the Jets coming up here on Sunday. With that, guys, let's go now over to the NBA and talk about the Eastern Conference Finals. It is a 2-0 Miami Heat lead. The Heat now, folks, 10-1 on the NBA postseason. So far, they've lost 1 time in 11 games played. But also, Trevor, the big news, though, out of this series is not about the Heat winning, but the Boston Celtics having a locker room blow-up after Game 2 had concluded, with a lot of reports gathered in regards to Marcus Smart saying some comments, a lot of yelling and kicking and screaming going on. But quickly, though, those guys very quick to defuse that situation. Brad Stevens even tried to defuse the situation. Trevor, let's first talk about Miami, because they have probably been the hottest team to enter the NBA bubble, going 10-1 so far in the NBA postseason and just looking absolutely dominant so far. Again, getting by Indiana, taking down the Bucks in the second round. Of course, the Bucks, the best overall record, number 1 overall seed out east, and now taking down the Celtics right now in the first 2 games of the series. Trevor, before we talk about the Celtics, how about some thoughts about the Miami Heat and their 2-0 lead right now in the conference finals versus Boston?
Looking at the Miami Heat, it feels like I'm watching like the dream team Miami Heat with LeBron James, D Wade, and Chris Bosh. How dominant they are in the playoffs. Like going up 2-0 on the Boston Celtics, it's really hard for teams to swing that game back and be like, oh, okay, it's going to be 2-1 in most cases. But like the Miami Heat have been dominant throughout the playoffs. They took down the Pacers without a problem. They took care of Giannis, who's now league MVP, so he's now out of the picture. So it's literally their playoff series to lose at this point, because like I think Boston can't really get themselves together, though they have the team to pull it off. You're down 2 games. You have to literally win 2 in a row to make this series interesting. If you are not able to do, it's really hard to make that comeback, though we've seen teams come back 3-1 in the playoffs. But this is a Miami Heat team that will not let off the gas like some of the other teams in the playoffs. So I think Miami's going to end up winning the series 100%.
Definitely, Trevor. I agree. A quick game break, folks. At halftime, it is all Lakers. 70-59, Los Angeles leading Denver at the half right now in Orlando. But of course, folks, we'll talk about the Lakers and Nuggets very shortly. But again, the Lakers are up 70-59 at recess in Orlando, Florida. Isaiah, again, man, we played the video of you and Steven when this whole network kind of came to fruition on carpool chats many months ago, in regards that you had said at the deadline that Miami was going to overtake Milwaukee and get to the conference final. And here they are, man. And not just beating Milwaukee, but they've been just totally obliterating whoever has been in their way. Now, again, though, Boston has lost these last two games, fellas, by a combined total of 6 points. All three games have been lost by 3 points. And Isaiah, Miami is just out here just raising all sorts of havoc and hell pretty much against everyone that's a part of, that's in front of them, whether it's Indiana, Milwaukee, Boston. They've had this attitude, man, of we're not afraid of anybody or whoever you put in front of us so far. And I absolutely love seeing a team with that mentality. Isaiah, your thoughts about Miami going up 2-0 on the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, 2 wins away from going to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I love this Miami Heat team, man. They remind me a lot of the Denver Nuggets right now, like how they're playing in the Western Conference. They don't quit. They're not scared of anybody, no matter if the opponent has Kawhi Leonard or Paul George, or if the opponent has one of the best players in the NBA, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, and like they don't care. They go out there, they do their job, they play their game, and they're just really fundamentally sound. If you look at the Miami Heat, they've got all the pieces necessary. I don't even think they need that superstar to win them a championship. They've got Jimmy Butler, who is an all-star. He is very, very experienced. He's very good in closing situations. He took over the game, I believe, or took over the series in that Milwaukee series when the Bucks were up in the third quarter. He just put the team on his back and, willed his team to victory multiple times in that series. And he's done it in this Boston series as well. And then you got these two rookies, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, who are just sharp shooters. They can shoot the lights out from the perimeter. They're just so good. They're playing way better beyond their ages, and it's very, very impressive to watch. They don't even look like rookies. They look like 10-year veterans instead. Goran Dragic looked like himself from 9 years ago. I think he might have drank from the fountain of youth out there in Orlando, Florida at the Walt Disney World. He looks fantastic. Bam Adebayo is having his breakout campaign. I mean, this guy was overlooked by a lot of people. When you asked a lot of people in the NBA circles who was the best, the top 5 centers in the NBA, Bam Adebayo name never ever came up. People didn't even know who he was until this bubble started, and he is showing how great of a center he is on offense and defense. I mean, just going up there with that superhuman effort, blocking Jason Tatum as he was about to dunk. I mean, I think that was probably the best block I've ever seen in my life watching NBA playoff basketball. And then you just have Eric Spoelstra. I mean, this guy is one of the most underrated head coaches in the NBA. He doesn't really get that much credit. I think he's the top 3 head coach in the NBA. His teams, whenever they play, they're so fundamentally sound on offense, and they're laser focused in on defense. I mean, just look at yesterday. The Boston Celtics, they were dominating this game in the first 2 quarters. They had a 12-point lead, and Eric Spoelstra decided to switch things up and run a zone defense in the second half, which completely confused the Boston Celtics, which led the Heat to go on a 37-17 third quarter run and basically take this game over. I mean, Eric Spoelstra is just a genius. I love this dude, and you got to give credit to Pat Riley, man. This guy has constructed this team. This team was once thought to be a team that, had a lot of bloated contracts, weren't really going to go anywhere after LeBron left, but Pat Riley has managed to lift this team from a middling team to a team that is on the brink of going to the NBA Finals. So all around, great effort from everybody in this organization.
Furman, I don't think it can be overstated about how great of a job that Eric Spoelstra has done, how great of a job Pat Riley did putting together this Heat ball club this season. Again, a lot of, no names, a lot of, unproven players maybe. But Jimmy Butler comes to town. And then, honestly, man, Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo are solely, man, in my mind, Furman, becoming household names. And, people are going to remember, the block I'm going to, I think people are honestly going to remember the block by Bam maybe a bit more than the LeBron James block in 2016 as more time goes on and that highlight gets replayed on NBA TV over and over again. Furman, how about your thoughts, man, on the Heat so far? We'll get to the Celtics, but in just a moment, your thoughts right now on Miami and how they've looked so far throughout the entire postseason.
Yeah, I think in the last 2 games, the definition of the Heat is just clutch. You saw that Bam Adebayo block on Jason Tatum. That was crazy clutch. Tyler Hero hitting those 2 threes to get Miami back into the game against the Celtics in game 1. And then Jimmy Butler, like this guy he's just showing how you don't have to score to have a huge impact on your team. But he still scores big in the fourth quarter, shooting that crazy 3 to tie the game up. And then at overtime, hitting that and 1. And also in game 2, having those 3 clutch steals and also hitting a potentially game-winning layup. Like the Heat is just a definition of a system team has really good chemistry and has been working really well together. Honestly, this is one of the most unique teams I've ever seen. And ever since the regular season when the Heat started to rise in the power rankings, they've caught my eye as a team that literally grabbed a bunch of nobodies and Jimmy Butler and turned into one of the best teams in the NBA. I mean, taking down Giannis and also taking down the Pacers and sweeping them in a highly anticipated rival match. And all of those games combined together just proved that the Heat are one of the most underrated teams of all time in the NBA. And I also have to give a lot of credit to Eric Spoelstra because he doesn't get any of the credit he deserves right now in the media. He should have been the coach of the year instead of Nick Nurse because look at the team he put together. Besides Jimmy Butler, he turned Bam Adebayo into a huge impact player and a really good defender and scorer on both ends. And they've also got Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, even Jay Crowder, Goran Dragic. And even though he's in the bench right now, Kendrick Nunn, he turned all of these players into high impact players, crazy role players that set each other up for scoring and success. So really underrated coach. And also, like Isaiah said, a really good job by Pat Riley to put this team together. I think Eric Spoelstra's legacy was way too overseen by LeBron, D. Wade, and Chris Bosh when they had the big 3. But look at his team now. They're like 2 wins closer to becoming a team that's going to make it to the NBA Finals. So this has been a crazy season in the bubble, and I can't wait for the Miami Heat to close out against the Celtics.
Now, Trevor, with that in mind, of course, the top story surrounding the series, though, man, is the reports coming out, courtesy of ESPN, Andrews, of the post-game antics by the Celtics following their Game 2 loss. A lot of kicking and screaming, Marcus Smart going off on people, Jaylen Brown backing up his player, Brad Stevens trying to, in a way, kind of mend the fence with the ball club. But Trevor, as I said this morning, though, man, on the Quarantine Network, is I've been a part of teams that have kind of had to go through these kind of ordeals with, losing games and maybe guys aren't buying into the process or, it's a amplified moment with the postseason. And sometimes it kind of has to come to a closed door meeting, players only, players and coaches only, no media interference. Or in a way, sometimes we're guys who wear their hearts on their sleeves like a Marcus Smart, kind of in a way, screw you, screw you, screw you, and screw you. Like in a way, though, to kind of get everyone back on the same page. And I know that sometimes, though, especially nowadays, though, man, sometimes the headlines kind of get wrung out like a washcloth. They get twisted. They get turned, every which way. And they kind of, in a way, sometimes cause maybe rift or cause tension. And I'm not going to say it's tension, more so a team trying to wake itself up and say, hey, why are we not on the same page here? What is going wrong? And again, I've been a part of a lot of these locker rooms in my high school days, and even before that, sometimes in travel ball, where if we weren't playing well, we would literally call a meeting, players only, coaches and players only. And I'll tell you a very quick story, fellas, but we were playing a tournament, travel baseball in Cooperstown, New York, and we had lost a game that we probably should have won, and we weren't playing very well. And to our credit, before we went out and had dinner, all of us got together in our bunkhouse and had a closed-door 30-minute meeting, and we went around and asked everyone what we had to do better to, get farther in the tournament. And we end up winning our next 3 or 4 games in a row. We had the same thing happen during the championship game. We had a 40-minute rain delay. We had to go back to our bunkhouse. We again said it was like a Jason Hayward moment in 2016. What do we have to do to get on the same page and win the whole thing? We end up winning the whole thing after those 2 meetings. So, Trevor, it works. Believe it or not, this sort of stuff works, man. So your thoughts about how the Celtics right now are kind of going about their business. Now, yes, it may not be the right way to do it in people's minds, but sometimes, though, man, these sort of things where guys are, yelling and screaming and chewing each other out for a good reason, it works sometimes in pro sports and sports in general. So your thoughts about the Celtics, somewhat in a way having a bit of a oddball, if not tense meeting when this game ended on Thursday night.
I think for their intense call out, it's like it's getting people accountable. You're all in this together. You're doing your 1/5 on the basketball court, and you're responsible for, let's say, making sure you do good bounce passes or making good assists. But if you end up losing a game, you're trying to figure out what you did wrong so you don't lose again. In the NBA playoff series, team chemistry is important. If you're not on the same page, you're not going to be able to win many of those games. So I think that was the first thing they need to do. And sometimes you got to get people fired up. If people are not fired up in a playoff game scenario, you're not going to win. At the bottom line, if people are not fired up or motivated to win a game, they're not going to step up and play. But if you see players with heart start going after other players and be like saying, hey, we got to get this. We have a chance to be an NBA champion, and people can't take that away from you because right now there's no NBA scandal going on. So, like, you can end up going all the way and saying you're an NBA champion. You had no super dream legendary player on your team. It was just you and a band of your brothers be able to pull it off and be a Miami Heat team in game 3 possibly. But now the media is into it. And now the media is going to twist and turn it like we already seen. It could turn some bad blood in the organization and hurt them in the playoff run for the rest of the series. So it's really going to be interesting how Boston ends up handling game 3. I hope they bounce back and make it a 2-1 so this series can be more spicy and interesting.
Isaiah, what do you make about this? Man, and like I said, sometimes though for teams, this kind of stuff needs to kind of get everyone fired up and get back on the winning way or back on the right track at least. And again, I know that probably people are saying, well, why do you have to, scream and shout at your teammates? That's just blunt honesty coming from fellow teammates of yours if you're not holding up your end of the bargain. So Isaiah, give us your thoughts here about this Boston Celtics ordeal. Does this in your mind probably cause some friction, cause a rift? And does this meaning, though, in your mind, Isaiah, probably in your mind, sink the Celtics for the next 2 games, or what do you think?
No, I don't. I actually really like this by the Boston Celtics. I think the Golden State Warriors had the same kind of ordeal. I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago, when they were down by 20, I believe, to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then I guess Draymond Green and the Warriors coaching staff had a screaming match in which Steve Kerr said was criticizing Draymond, and Draymond Green was like, I'm not an effing robot, man, stuff like that. And then he started screaming at Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr got into his face, and the whole thing blew up. But then it just rallied the troops. The Warriors ended up coming back from being down 20 plus and winning that game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I really think that this will rally the troops in Boston, because they know that, they're down 2-0. The chances of them coming back and winning this series is not good. If they lose game 3, it is certainly over, because no team in NBA history has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. So the Boston Celtics, I think with this meeting, it gives them a sense of urgency. But in terms of this series for the Celtics, though, I think the Celtics are in a whole heap of trouble, simply because the Celtics have given the Miami Heat all they can handle. They've been up 15 plus points in the first half of the 2 games so far in the series, and in both of those 2 games they've blown it. So I think the Celtics' confidence might be really, really down right now, and I just think that this meeting or this screaming match really had to happen, or else the Celtics would have faded away they would have faded away if this meeting didn't happen.
Christy Wilson Furman writes in, the Celtics could probably do what the Red Sox did in 2004. They'd be coming back from a 0-3 deficit, but again, it's never happened in NBA history, which leads me to the question of why not us. But Furman, what do you make about this, man, in regards to the reports? Again, as mentioned, a very, I would say chaotic, but again, more so probably a snap back into reality for the Boston Celtics, trying to get everyone back on the same page and trying to remember that the ultimate goal is to get to the NBA Finals and win the whole kit and caboodle. So what do you think about the entire reports coming out from the bubble? Again, as mentioned, Celtics have been having a pretty heated exchange of words after Game 2 had concluded on Thursday.
Yeah, I was just about to say what Isaiah mentioned with the Golden State Warriors versus OKC a couple years ago. At halftime, when the Warriors were clearly out of sync and losing badly, Draymond Green just went on this huge tirade against all the head coach, head coach Steve Kerr, and the rest of the coaching staff. And there was tons of profanity, and I think that's what fired up the Warriors to come back in that game to win. You saw Curry just hit 12 threes all of a sudden, and including that 35-footer at overtime to just hit that game winner. I think this is the type of fire the Celtics need right now. They're down 0-2, and there is absolutely no excuse in games 1 and 2 where in the first half you were up by double digits and somehow in the second half you completely collapsed and you let the Miami Heat come back in the fourth quarter in clutch moments and somehow take the game away from you. If you're the Celtics right now, you really have to be pissed at yourself. You cannot think about any of these moments anymore. You have to come back in games 3, 4, and so on, and light and ignite that fire. You have to come out and prove yourself that you're stronger than the Miami Heat, and you're not going to take those leads away and let Miami Heat chip in the second half like that. Right now, I think the biggest issues with the Celtics is that they have no rhythm on offense. So far, when I've seen these guys play, they've been all isolation and they have no shot creating possessions. They're just relying on like one guy on their team to just go on a one-on-one against the defender and try to create a shot for themselves. That's not the type of game that I would agree upon at this current era of the NBA. You have to be like the Heat. You need to involve every person on that court and move your guys around and set up guys for open shots and good looks. That's what the Celtics are failing to do, especially in the second half that we've seen against the Heat. I've seen this issue already against the Raptors. In all these moments where they've had these low-scoring games against the Raptors and games where they should have won, especially when they were up 2-0, these were the moments where the Celtics collapsed. They just didn't have offensive rhythm, and they could have pulled the game away. But because of that, they've allowed the other team to catch back up. And now we're seeing this issue again with the Heat. So I'm surprised that the Celtics even beat the Raptors at this point. And another thing is, I think the Celtics are really missing out on Gordon Hayward right now.
Big time.
Yeah, they really need this guy to come back. I hope he has recovered well from his ankle injury and just bolster up this Celtics offense right now. And hopefully they'll have some chemistry to develop in games 3 and 4 if he comes back. And hopefully the Celtics would use that locker room outrage to really bring themselves back together against the Heat.
And if they are able to come back, folks, and tie the series or win the whole series or win the series, we can look back on that locker room blow up for the best or the reason as to why they won that series or tied things up. Isaiah, we'll go back to you for more about the Celtics. What do you got for us?
No, I was just going to add what Furman just said, and that is the Celtics desperately need Gordon Hayward to come back, because if you look at that third quarter, like Furman said, their offense was out of sync. Players were relying on just one player to score the basketball, and that player was ice cold. So if you can get Gordon Hayward back, who is a great scorer of the basketball, you'll get another scoring option when the offense does go cold. And I think that Gordon Hayward would really help the Celtics in those situations when the Celtics go cold in that third quarter or the fourth quarter.
So again, folks, we'll see how this works for the Celtics again, folks, per reports from Malika Andrews of ESPN. A major shouting match in brouhaha between the Celtics and their teammates after the Game 2 loss to Miami following the loss on Thursday. And Christie agrees Hayward could be a difference maker for Boston. He definitely, I think, is the reason or the man that will probably help this club out as they hopefully still are able to hold on and hopefully get back in this series. Now, with that, guys, there's still one more series that is now underway in Orlando. Lakers Nuggets for the Western Conference Finals. The Lakers, as of right now, with 7:55 left in the third quarter, leading Denver 76-64. The number one seeded Lakers are going to go back to the NBA Finals for the first time in 10 years when they last beat the Celtics for the NBA title against 76-64 LA on top as they just get the third quarter underway from the bubble in Orlando. And Trevor, like we have said, though, man, so many times, is that Mike Malone and the Nuggets have not gotten the respect they have deserved because they just went out there and stole 2 series, being down in both series 3-1. They stole it from Utah and then ripped the hearts out of the LA Clippers in the second round and now have to face the almighty and number one seeded Lakers. But I like the mentality, though, even though I had the Lakers winning the series, I love their mentality of, hey, we're not scared of anybody. Like I said earlier about Miami not being scared of anybody, Denver is definitely not scared of who was on the other side of the floor, though. Now, again, it might be a bit of a difficult, no pun intended, but tougher mountain to climb to face the Lakers in this round. Again, the Lakers beat them 3 of the 4 times they faced off in the regular season. But certainly, though, Trevor, this I think is going to be probably a better series than maybe most people might think in people's minds. But Trevor, give us your preview and your reaction to the series between Denver and Los Angeles.
I was going to say that the Nuggets were going to win game 1, but that's not going to happen, basing off what's going to happen. But that's what the Lakers been having in their mentality, where it's like they let game 1 go and then they dominate 4 games after that. But this series could be something interesting. The Lakers could sweep, but at the same time, the Denver Nuggets are the Cinderella story of this playoffs. They've been causing havoc at the weirdest times. It's like, oh, this series all done and wrapped up, and then they start making a surge. The star players on the other team just are not producing, and then the Denver Nuggets keep winning these games, and they get on a hot streak, and then it's magically game 7, and they win it. And it's like, how do we let this happen? We have better teams, but they ended up losing. It was like, come on now. You're the better team. You're supposed to close out these series when you're in a league this much. I can understand, take it to a game 6. Something must have happened. But you end up winning a game 6 in that scenario. Come on now. But I think this is going to be finished in 5, but let's see what ends up happening. And I don't know what's going to really happen. Like, Denver Nuggets could really shock us and upset the Lakers. I doubt that's going to happen, but let's see. Let's tune in and watch what happens.
Isaiah, I have always had Lakers in 5 in my mind for the entire playoff run for Los Angeles so far. I have don't have a friend, but a player for the San Diego Seals of the National Lacrosse League. On all of his lacrosse sticks, he has Cavs in 7 on all of his sticks. Now, I don't know if he's actually from Cleveland or if he's a Cavs fan or what the deal is, but I think it's more so about a mentality or having that mentality of, no obstacle is too big to overcome. So he has Cavs in 7 written on all of his sticks for lacrosse. I've had Lakers in 5, like, ingrained in my head throughout the entire course of the NBA postseason, because we have seen how the Lakers have somewhat, in a way, maybe kind of given a free pass for game 1, and they come out, and then they come out the next 4 games, and it's, pound this team and smack them down and take the series. But Isaiah, as of right now, man, it could be perhaps maybe role reverse where the Lakers maybe win a game 1. But again, man, more so about Denver. They have probably been, them and the Heat both have been probably the 2 most fun teams to watch so far in the bubble environment. And Christie agrees the Nuggets have proven that they are not a team to be underestimated. And I think, though, Isaiah, the Lakers probably are not a team to overlook anybody. Not like the Clippers, how I think that how we had talked about on Wednesday, pal, that the Clippers, were so hell-bent on worrying about the Lakers. They weren't worried about or thinking mentally in their head. They weren't focusing in on Dallas or on Denver. It was like they were hell-bent on just worrying so much about the Lakers. And I had said the quote on Wednesday that Kyle Kuzma was asked for his thoughts about the Clippers losing, and was he ever thinking about playing the Clippers? And he said, no, we're only focused about ourselves and our task at hand. And that was Portland, Houston, and now it's going to be on Denver. So, Isaiah, your overall thoughts about this series, and more than anything else, though, about maybe the Nuggets, perhaps in your mind, at least earning some type of respect in your mind because of how they have played so far in the postseason at this juncture?
Yeah, this series I think is very scary to me simply because, the Lakers, their biggest obstacle to the championship, which was the Clippers, they're eliminated now. So the Lakers, I think, have a clear path to ring number 17. But this is when it gets crazy, or not crazy, scary. It gets scary when you have that clear path to the championship. So you start overlooking everybody and then thinking like, oh, it's so easy. We're gonna just stomp through everybody to championship number 17. So the Lakers cannot think in their minds that they've got this series in the bag, because if they do, that is going to bite them back in the ass. And I just think that a guy, Jonathan Mathis, who is me and Callan's co-host on Wild Sports Talk, he posted something really good on Facebook, which was Denver likes playing from behind. So the Lakers cannot let their feet off the gas pedal, or else the Denver Nuggets are going to make it a game. The Los Angeles Lakers, throughout this entire series, each and every game, they have to keep their foot on the gas pedal, because if they don't, we have seen time and time again in that Clipper series, the Nuggets are going to come back. And I believe that the Lakers, what they got to do is very simple. They got to impose their will. The Lakers have three great big men in Anthony Davis, JaVale McGee, and Dwight Howard. The Denver Nuggets have one. That is Nikola Jokic. The Lakers have got to be very aggressive, get the ball in the paint, and punish the Nuggets in the paint, and either, lay it up for a basket or get to the foul line, which they've been doing really, really good thus far in game one. They are 22 out of 32 from the free throw line. They have 32 free throws. So they are getting to the line, getting Jokic in foul trouble, and playing great defense on the Nuggets wings so far in this game one. So I think the Lakers got to stick with this recipe. They just got to impose their will down low on the Denver Nuggets and just, keep their foot on the gas pedal, and then they'll win this series.
Quick check of the scoreboard, folks. At last check, with about 6:41 to go in the third, the Lakers were on top 78-67 at the last check of the NBA scoreboard. So we'll try to keep you folks posted on that game as the show progresses. And Furman, man, I think that Denver is earning respect. I have, for the longest time recently, Furman, been comparing the Nuggets to the New York Islanders of the NHL, because both teams have had to go through a gauntlet to get to where they're at. The Islanders in hockey had to get through the qualifying round, best 3 out of 5, which was to even make the playoff field. Then they got through the main first round, the second round, and sadly lost last night in the conference final, where Denver has had to go through 14 games already. They had to play 2 game 7s, come back from 3-1 down in both. And I think that it probably, at this rate, Furman, not because of being a Laker fan or Laker bias, but that has got to take a toll, though, on guys who have been playing basketball or have been playing that many game 7s, that many minutes, and logging that much time on the body, where the Lakers have played 10 games so far in the entire postseason, because they've played all of their series to 5 games. So, Furman, more so, man, about Denver, your thoughts about them getting here and getting to this point in time right now in the playoff field?
I think Denver they're really, we've seen their potential throughout the entire playoffs. I think they're extremely underrated, and just looking at what they've done to Utah and the Clippers, you just can't underestimate them. It doesn't matter if you're like the best team in the NBA or even an average team. They're gonna find ways to pick you apart depending on the situation. And the Nuggets have adjusted really well into the playoffs so far. So right now, even if I'm seeing like the Lakers are up 86-69, I'd still be scared even with a 17-point lead in the third quarter. I think the Denver Nuggets have that big of a potential to come back in the second half. And also seeing what they've been able to do with the Clippers. The Clippers were up by like 20 points or something in one of those games where they've lost. And in the second half, the Nuggets just took over. This is a team that I honestly, as a Lakers fan, would be concerned about right now.
Absolutely.
Even if they're not the best team, or even if everybody's had anticipated that we would probably play the Clippers by now. But one thing I like to take away for the Lakers is that they have way more athleticism with their big men. So I definitely want to see AD, JaVale McGee, LeBron, and Dwight Howard getting more boards and fighting for those boards more often than Nikola Jokic and Paul Millsap. I think that's the key to winning the series. And also, the Lakers have always been good at stopping Jamal Murray and other point guards like Damian Lillard, James Harden as a shooting guard in the playoffs. I think that's the other key to winning the game is to really limit the players' scoring opportunities. And as a Lakers, if you're on defense, just keep playing and hustling and working hard to get those boards and rotating. And I think this could be definitely a really interesting series at the end of the day for the Lakers if they keep playing like this.
I think I definitely agree in regards to how the series might in fact go. And again, folks, as of right now, with about 5 minutes left to go in the third quarter, it is 86-69 Lakers on top. And again, folks, we've seen this Nuggets team come back from a lot of very insane deficits to come back and win a matchup. But again, the Lakers currently in front as we speak right here and right now. With that, Trevor, to probably the most bizarre and most ridiculous story we've probably talked about on the 6th, or at least on this program, the time I've been a part of this, and that is in the world of boxing. And per reports from DAZN.com, Floyd Mayweather Jr. could be coming out of retirement, fellas, to fight YouTube star Logan Paul, per a couple of reports that have been gathered over the past several days. And of course, DAZN.com putting out an article as early as September 16th. So literally 2 days ago about this whole thing. We have not, folks, been able to confirm nor deny the actual rumors. Now, again, folks, Floyd has in fact had a couple of exhibition bouts on his resume recently, most notably fighting a Japanese kickboxer in December of 2018. And also, of course, having the infamous fight with MMA superstar Conor McGregor that also led to him being 50-0, and also keep in mind that Floyd is currently 43 years old as well. Trevor, you know, man, I know that we have a very awesome fight coming up, though, eventually between Iron Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. And again, Iron Mike has been out there at age 54 and still has that hand speed from when he was 30 years younger. It's absolutely mind-boggling seeing how good a shape Mike Tyson is. But, man, out of all the looniness and all the other ridiculous things we've seen Floyd Mayweather do between fighting Conor McGregor, now you're going to fight Logan frickin' Paul, who, by the way, I should mention, is 0-1-1 in his boxing career, losing and drawing with, I believe, a UK rapper or UK YouTuber, KSI. I forget what the whole thing was. But anyway, he lost anyway at Staples Center back in November of last year. Trevor, is Floyd that starved for money, attention, and the spotlight to fight a YouTuber in a 3-round fight? Give me a damn break, man, but give us your thoughts about this story. Again, Floyd Mayweather possibly coming out of retirement to fight Logan Paul in an exhibition boxing match.
I guess it adds to his resume of the people he ends up fighting, but like, why are you fighting a YouTuber? It makes no sense. But if this fight does happen, I don't think Logan Paul is going to be able to do anything. Like, I look back at the KSI and Logan Paul fight the second time, but like Logan Paul was literally jabbing most of the time. KSI sent so many more powerful punches, like power punches. Like, I'm assuming that's going to be the same thing that Mayweather is going to end up doing in this sense. So it's literally going to be the same exact fight, but you're against a real boxer. So this round is not going to last that long. I think it's probably they're going to finish the first round, but I think Logan Paul would be knocked out in the second round just based on how Mayweather is going to feel. But at the same time, the longer the fight, the more viewers that people end up watching, the more money that Mayweather gets. So he may drag this fight out, knowing that he can end this fight at any point in time that he feels like it. So I think he might just toy this fight and just be like, oh, I can knock him out in 3 rounds with no problem. But I just think that this fight it doesn't make any sense. Like, there's nothing at stake. There's really, like, yes, a streak on the line, but I don't think he's going to lose. It's Floyd Mayweather. I don't think he loses. Man can't lose.
It is Floyd. It is Floyd. A couple of comments. Christy Wilson writes in first, this Mayweather story sounds ridiculous to me. Logan Paul would not stand a chance against Floyd. He'll probably get knocked out in the first round. And Isaiah, this sounds to me to be nothing more than a money grab and a YouTube viewership grab for both Floyd and for Logan Paul. Man, this is nothing more than a absolutely terrible PR stunt. And Isaiah, I've been working in sports for 11 years. I have never in my career covered or talked about a more utterly ridiculous, stupid story than this one right here and right now with Logan Paul, a YouTube sensation, also more with controversy, him and his brother both, challenging probably the best boxer of modern time and a man who's 50-0 and worth a lot more than all of us combined revenue-wise, and Floyd Money Mayweather Jr. Isaiah, I think it smells more so for a money grab. It's a PR grab. It's a subscribe to my YouTube channel grab. It's a lot of other utter stupid, pathetic BS is what this whole story is in my mind. So Isaiah, give us your thoughts. Again, Floyd Mayweather Jr. possibly coming out of retirement per reports to go and fight a YouTuber for probably a good chunk of change.
Well, Callan, Trevor, Furman, 2020 has been absolutely insane. We've had a lot of stuff going on in this year, and what a way to end 2020, man, with arguably the best pound-for-pound boxer in boxing history fighting a YouTuber. What a better way to end 2020. But in all seriousness, though, I agree with Trevor and you, Callan. I think that this is a ridiculous bout. If I'm a boxing fan, I wouldn't even pay $5 to watch this fight because we all know what the end result is going to be. Floyd Mayweather is going to knock Logan Paul out in the very first minute of the fight. I would be stunned if Logan Paul lasts even one round in this fight. It is such a stupid fight, man. Floyd Mayweather, let me tell you something. If you're going to come out of retirement, be a man and come out and fight a real boxer like Canelo Alvarez, Triple G, Manny Pacquiao, or even Terrence Crawford. Stop fighting these guys that have no business sharing the ring with you like the Conor McGregors of the world and now Logan Paul. Nobody even wants to watch you fight Logan Paul and that guy from Japan. No disrespect to him. Stop fighting these non-boxers and actually fight real boxers if you want to get back into the fight game. It's truly ridiculous, man. Floyd is bringing a lot of shame to boxing. That's why most people these days don't even watch boxing and instead tune into the UFC because fighters always fight these BS fights and they don't fight the fighters that the fans really want to see. It's really sad, man. Floyd, one last thing before I close, and that is if you really want an easy fight, a money grab, hey, man, I got gloves right here, man. I'm willing to strap on and fight you, and probably you can knock me out, and you can give me $10 million. I'd be willing. So you have an opponent right here. Give me that contract. I will sign it, and we can box, my friend. Hands, Floyd. Yeah.
I think that's the last thing we want to see is have one of our fellow co-hosts get absolutely annihilated by Floyd Money Mayweather in the first 2 seconds of the fight. Christy agrees. I can tell you something even more ridiculous. How about Tyson Fury in a WWE ring against pro wrestler Braun Strowman? I'll one-up you. Evander Holyfield fighting Matt Hardy on Saturday night's event many years ago on NBC in front of the entire world was also a terrible, terrible decision. And also, Christy says, Isaiah, you don't have a prayer against Mayweather. I definitely agree. I think all of us but Isaiah agree about that one for sure. But I definitely agree, though, in regards to what was said, though, in regards to the whole entire thing. Honestly, I think Isaiah would have a better chance fighting Logan Paul, honestly, than anyone else, to be very frank and honest. But Furman, what do you think about this, man? And I think, though, I think, guys, Isaiah's onto a great point, though, about the state of boxing right now. I will say, though, that if there's a saving grace, I'm going to be blunt honest with you here, but there's one saving grace for boxing. It's been the women's division. A lot of great notable names in women's boxing are surfacing very, very soon, or now at least, as mentioned, plenty of them that I can probably name drop. Clarissa Shields, member of Team USA, who's, I think, won two of the big belts in her weight class. Michaela Meyer, on track to also have a championship fight very, very shortly. Heather Hardy, also very well known in her weight class as well. Who was Sulim Yerbina, one of the very few pro athletes who follows me on Instagram for like cool reasons, I guess, but she's also climbing the ranks as well. So Furman, while it looks like that, women's boxing is taking off very good, though, this is just one reason, man, why I think people are in fact turning away from boxing on the male side because of money grabs and PR snafus like this utter nonsense with one of the most notable names, probably the greatest fighter in the past 2 decades in boxing, Floyd Money Mayweather Jr., fighting a guy who literally vlogs about his life on YouTube. You have got to be utterly kidding me about something like this. So, Furman, your thoughts, if you have any, about Floyd Mayweather fighting Logan Paul, apparently per reports gathered by DAZN.com.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about this. And you're right. I think boxing is just a money grabbing scheme right now. It reminds me of the MLB and football paying these players $30 million to $40 million a year, but they only had half a season to show for, and you're just throwing all that money out there to these players to box, and it's not even entertaining in my sense. That's ridiculous. Who would pay for that? So I'd just like to add on, if you're looking for a no BS fight, just watch the MMA UFC 253 next Saturday, Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa. I'm pretty sure that's going to be way more exciting than a YouTube fight. This is such a joke of a fight. I don't even want to talk too much about this. Mayweather already had another fight in 2018 against Tenshin in Japan, and you could tell during that fight, Mayweather was even laughing at Tenshin, during that, right before the first round started. He was just literally smiling at the background and just looking at the crowd and taunting them. He wasn't even taking that fight seriously, and he's still getting paid for it. So I anticipate the same thing with Logan Paul. He's just a YouTuber that vlogs, and both of them are just doing this for the money, But then I would like to go on a few things about them. Mm-hmm. The first thing is Logan Paul, based on the fights that I've seen with KSI in the YouTube fights, those fights were only 6 rounds, and Logan Paul was already gassed, and he could barely last 6 rounds against KSI. But against Floyd Mayweather, this is probably going to be 12 rounds. So he's going to have to train extra hard for this if he's actually going to take this fight seriously. There is no way he's going to last more than 4 rounds without getting completely gassed if Logan Paul's going to fight Mayweather. But however, I would like to say this quickly. I think I would disagree with Isaiah and what Trevor said about the result of the fight. I don't think this is a first round knockout, because when you look at the size matchup, Mayweather and Logan Paul are two different weight classes. Mayweather is 5'8", and I think Logan Paul's a little bit above 6'2". So Logan Paul has a huge size and height and reach advantage. So Mayweather, I think if he literally has to take this seriously and box Logan Paul, it's pretty simple. You don't have to knock him out in the first round. Just look at what Logan Paul did against KSI. He was literally gassed before 6 rounds. So just literally wait for Logan Paul to be tired and just punch him the F out. And that's going to be a 4th round TKO for me.
Much like what happened when he fought McGregor. I mean, he was literally on his stool with his trainer, smiling for a picture from the photographer. And I think he knocked Conor out in round 7, round 8, or the referee stopped the fight somewhere to give Floyd his 50th victory of his illustrious career. And with that, guys, one more game break here. After 3, 103-79 Lakers on top of the Denver Nuggets. But again, folks, this game is far from over at this time. Trevor wants to make one more point about this utterly stupid story of Mayweather fighting a YouTuber. Go for it, big fella. What do you got for us?
I want to say that if Isaiah does fight Mayweather, I think the odds of him winning are not the greatest, but imagine the Vegas odds if Isaiah upsets Mayweather.
Oh, my goodness.
It would be insane. He would break the bank. So, Isaiah, I wish you the best of luck. Floyd Mayweather one day. One day. If you do fight him, I wish you the best of luck.
Oh, man. I don't even think that Vegas's odds boards could even keep that at somewhere on the board, and it'd be like NA, like all bets are off. Isaiah wants to respond. Go for it.
I'm going to say this before we move on to our Pigskin Pick'Em, and that is I probably would last longer than Logan Paul, surprisingly, simply because I would just copy what Floyd does in the ring, and that is just run around the ring and just be like, hey, Floyd, can you catch me? Nope. And just run around and be like, oh, I'm good.
That's fair. I still think that you would have a better shot facing Logan Paul than he would Floyd Money Mayweather and going to giving Floyd his 52nd victory of his career when it's all said and done. But again, folks, utterly ridiculous story. Again, as mentioned, Floyd Mayweather, per reports, might be fighting YouTube sensation or YouTube scum, one of the two, Logan Paul, sometime in the near future. We'll see if, in fact, anything else materializes. Per reports gathered from DAZNnews.com, and Christy agrees that she prefers Bellator MMA, and also that boxing has been a joke with the exception of the women's ranks over the past several years. And I definitely agree in regards to how the women's division has been getting a lot better airtime recently. Again, Michaela Meyer, Clarissa Shields, Heather Hardy, Salim, Yerbina, so many of them over the past several few months have just been absolutely phenomenal to watch. And it's been very entertaining to see them and actually finally getting the respect that they deserve from promoters and also major television networks as well. With that, gents, we'll segue over now into our brand new, and again, second time we're doing this, but again, our daily picks every week here for the programs. We now, folks, go into our Pigskin Pick'Em for the upcoming weekend. Again, folks, this is going to be where we pick 2 games, 2 college games and 2 pro games for the weekend. We give you folks who we think will win the game. So, Trevor, we'll start with you with our college games first and foremost, but again, due to a canceled game by virtue of COVID-19, we have swapped it out for Louisiana Tech taking on Southern Mississippi. Who you got?
I got Southern Mississippi because they played one game, so they're already acclimated to the whole no crowd environment. So they're going to be able to control and dominate the game. There's no stats on Louisiana Tech, so I can't really compare the two between like apples and apples. So it's going to be in the dark for them. So that's why I'm leaning more towards Southern Miss. But Southern Miss's quarterback threw for 314 yards, 0 touchdowns in the first game opener. But he was able to complete 22 out of his 32 passes, which is not a bad night for an opener in college week 1. So that's very good for him. The rushing attack is little on the flat side with Frank Gore Jr. with 12 carries and 32 yards. So nothing too special in the run game. But it's where the receiving core, that's where they started to shine with Tim Jones with 6 receptions for 139 yards. I think Southern Miss will be able to carry that over with their passing attack and be able to win this game. I'm going to feel like this game is probably going to be 28-21. That's what I'm feeling out of this game.
All right, Isaiah, 1 vote for Southern Miss to knock off La Tech. How about you?
I am going to go with Louisiana Tech because right now Southern Miss is in a lot of chaos. I mean, they just fired their head coach after 1 game. Like, that's ridiculous, man. 1 game and you're out? Like, that's crazy. But they're in a lot of turmoil right now. Louisiana Tech last year went 10-3. They are returning most of their offensive starters and defensive starters from that team. I think they're just going to keep getting better. So I got Louisiana Tech going on the road and beating Southern Miss.
All right, Furman, 1 vote for Southern Miss and 1 vote right now for La Tech on the road. How about you?
Well, I'm just going to agree with Isaiah here. I got Louisiana Tech over Southern Miss because Southern Miss, they've lost their last game and they've been in a bit of a mess. And Louisiana Tech's got a great team. They've even beaten Southern Miss last year. And Louisiana Tech had a really good season last year. And I don't expect them to regress or anything. So I've got Louisiana Tech over Southern Miss without a doubt.
So 2 votes for Southern Miss, 1 vote for, 2 votes for La Tech, 1 vote for Southern Miss. Christy is writing in for the group or for the fans. Southern Miss is her selection. I'm going to go with La Tech as well by virtue of what Isaiah said, though, because, you know, what really happens, though, with this team after they have their head coach fired after 1 game and just a lot of disarray. And, you know, can they repair that in a week's time? I'm not sure. I'll go with La Tech on the road to knock off Southern Miss. Finally, Trevor, for our college side of Pigskin Pick'Em, 17th ranked Miami at 18th ranked Louisville on Saturday. Who you got?
Give me the upset. I'm going Louisville because Louisville has that passing attack locked down. Their quarterback ended up going 19 for 43 against Western Kentucky with 343 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. What a phenomenal night for him. The rushing attack for Louisville is also there with their top running back with 19 carries and 71 yards, 1 touchdown. Not a bad night for him. The receiving corps had 2 receivers reach over 100 yards in their home opener against Western Kentucky. So I think they're going to be in the driver's seat. But on the Miami side, when they played UAB Blazers, Miami wasn't there. They did not have a passing game. Their quarterback only threw for 15 times. Well, threw for 23 times and only completed 15 of his passes. Only got 141 with 1 touchdown. A little on the flat side, but their rushing attack, that's where Miami is strong. They ended up rushing. Their running back ended up rushing had 17 carries and 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Miami's rushing attack is going to carry them in this game. But when in college football, when games are on the line and big plays happen, they happen through the air. And that's where Louisville is going to end up capitalizing into this game and controlling this game from start to finish with their air attack. And that's where I'm going with Louisville.
All right, Isaiah, we have 1 vote here for Louisville to knock off the U. How about you?
This is probably going to be the best game in the entire college football slate for this weekend. I'm going to go with Trevor. I'm going to go with the upset simply because Miami has been garbage on offense for the past 2-3 years. Louisville has gotten a good, young, up-and-coming quarterback in Micaiah Cunningham, who he's not really, he doesn't have the best arm talent in the world. He's not really that athletic, but he gets the ball to his playmakers and lets them make plays. Guys like Tutu Atwell and Des Fitzpatrick and also Javion Hawkins. So I believe with a very good passing game and Miami not being able to pass the football, only being able to run the football, and Louisville, their run defense is very, very good under their second-year head coach, Scott Satterfield. I believe with them being at home and with their offense and defense being much better than Miami's, I'm going to go with Louisville pulling the upset over Miami on Saturday night.
All right, Furman, 2 votes for Louisville to knock off Miami. How about you for this game?
I don't really know too much about both of these teams, but I would say Louisville has better players right now. But I would still give this game to Miami. I don't think there's going to be an upset anywhere, even if it's playing at Louisville. I do like Cunningham and Hawkins. They're pretty they're like a dynamic core right there. And I think these guys will continue to develop really well heading further into the season. It's only 1 game into the season for Miami and Louisville, so I'm not sure, what their tendencies are, but I do think that Miami and Louisville, either one of these teams could be overrated. I think Miami is definitely one of the most overrated teams in college football. These guys never make it far, especially into in their conference. Louisville does have potential. They develop a lot of players over time, like Lamar Jackson in the past, but they ran their offense completely through him. And so I think Louisville has these, these one-punch tendencies. They got their strategy going, but they're going to be stubborn towards it. And at any game, I think these type of offensive schemes could go wrong. So it could be against Miami. So I got Miami over Louisville.
Other than the 2 schools I work with, I always prefer schools who have cool hand gestures. Like, for example, Wisconsin, ASU. Give me the U, baby. I'm with Furman on the road. Again, I think, though, I know that they have lost weapons guys on offense, but Miami's defense has always been something that you don't mess with. You never, you can't afford to turn the ball over against the Canes, not by virtue of a turnover chain, but he just can't afford to make mistakes against a very good, usually always impactful Miami defense. So I'll take the Canes over Louisville, but in a very close game on Saturday. Trevor, with that in mind, let's go now to our 2 NFL pick'ems for Pigskin Pick'em. First up, Minnesota visits Indianapolis on Sunday morning. Who you got?
I'm going with Captain Kirk on this one. The Vikings will be able to come back from their defeat against the Green Bay Packers. from that lost, terrible week 1 opener. I think Kirk Cousins is going to be fired up and ready to win this game. So Kirk Cousins is going to win it. Captain Kirk all the way. Let's go.
3 words for you. You like that?
All right, so 1 vote for Captain Kirk and the Minnesota Vikings on the road. Isaiah, how about you?
Oh my God. First of all, before I answer that question, Callan, I gotta say, man, we gotta get a GIF of Trevor with the captain hat on and those shades on, man.
Absolutely.
That's a great look. Like that's a fantastic look.
That's
Trevor.
a fabulous look on screen, folks. Take a good hard look at that right there.
So swaggy, man. So but in terms of this game, I'm gonna go with the Minnesota Vikings to bounce back because they've heard all the criticism all week about how their defense sucked and stuff like that, how their defense is overrated. And I think they're going to be out hungry to prove to the world that game 1 against the Green Bay Packers, that defensive performance was just a fluke. I believe that they're going to be able to contain Phillip Rivers and that Colts offense that just lost Marlon Mack to a torn Achilles injury. I think that Kirk Cousins is going to be able to feast on that Colts defense because let's not forget, this Colts defense gave up 20-plus points to Gardner freaking Minshew. So Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback. He's going to be able to do more with more talent on his team. He's going to be able to torch this Colts defense. I'm going to go with the Vikings over the Colts.
All right, Furman, 2 votes for Indianapolis, or for Minnesota, I should say, on the road at Indianapolis. Again, we had the great look from Trevor with the shades and the captain hat on. Furman, who are you going with and why in this matchup?
I'd like to first give a quick shout out to Frank Reich. He's doing decently well with the Colts. I got something special for him later, but I'm sorry about now though. I would still take the Vikings over the Colts, just like the rest of you guys right here. The Vikings, I believe in Kirk. He's a great quarterback. They've also got a great running game. And their defense, I know that they might seem a bit overrated, but hey, it was the Green Bay Packers, and Aaron Rodgers, he really put out a really good performance that week against the Vikings and put them under a lot of pressure. But I got to give the Vikings this one over the Colts because I'm really disappointed in Phillip Rivers. I think ever since last year with the Chargers, he's been throwing nothing but picks after picks in like the 4th quarter. So he's in my fantasy team right now, and I really need him to step up. But I think the Vikings will give him a lot of pressure to deal with. And especially since they've lost Marlon Mack for the whole entire year, the pressure's on Phillip Rivers for the rest of the season. And the Vikings are not going to let him just torch them that easily. The Vikings, they're going to give him a lot of pressure. And also the mentality is, the Vikings, they've got a better defense. And I think Kirk Cousins can really steamroll the Colts on the other end of the football field.
So 3 votes for the Vikings. Real quick, folks, a game break. 7:25 left, 4th quarter, 111-92, Lakers on top. Again, Denver trying to pull off another miracle comeback, it looks like, but we'll see if things go according to plan. All of us are going with Minnesota. I'm going with the Vikings as well because, like Furman said, I have seen the Phillip Rivers heartbreak 4th quarter way too many times in my life when he played in San Diego. So I'm going with Minnesota, and also that Captain Kirk bounces back to win the ball game for the Vikings. With that, Trevor, last game for our Pigskin Pick'Em. Rams visit the Eagles. Of course, the big story, of course, usually West Coast teams going out east don't usually fare very well, and also magnified by the ongoing pandemic. Trevor, who you got, LAR or Philadelphia?
I'm going with the Rams. The Rams just came off of a lucky game against the Cowboys. I think they're going to still need to go out and prove to people that they still can compete. Their defense was phenomenal with the Cowboys shutting them down to only 17 points. So that Cowboys offense is like a high-powered offense. The Eagles are not on the same par, but obviously the Eagles compete with Zach Ertz and Carson Wentz. But I just don't think Carson Wentz is going to be able to have a successful time in the pocket because the Rams defensive line just dominated the Cowboys offensive line. I think the Rams defensive line will do the same thing to the Eagles and just eat them up alive. So I think the Eagles are going to struggle in this game, and that's why the Rams are going to be able to control majority of this game with their defense, but it's just going to boil down to the offense. But I'm definitely going to go with the Rams in this game because the Rams just came off of a phenomenal game against the Cowboys.
Christy, as much as it pains her, will go with Philadelphia against the Rams on Sunday. Furman, we'll go to you for this one again, man. Rams and Eagles, who you got? Right now, one vote in place for the Rams on the road.
All right. I've got the Rams over the Eagles. I do believe the Rams got lucky last week against the Cowboys. That call, I believe it was against Michael Gallup. I thought it was very questionable. It wasn't really like it could have gone both ways, and the Cowboys could have potentially sent that to overtime. But I do believe the Rams will beat the Eagles because their defensive line was really strong, and if you're going to play that well against the Cowboys' offensive line, I don't think the Rams will have any problems generating a lot of pressure on Carson Wentz. And I'll get over to that point in a bit. The Rams' offense, they run a Sean McVay offense, a lot of bootlegs and play actions. I don't see any issues with the Rams getting into an offensive groove throughout the rest of the game. So they're going to have a field day with Cam Akers, also Jared Goff with the rest of the receiving core. Now I'm going to move on to the Eagles real quick. You guys are up 17-0 against the worst team in the NFL at halftime last week, and I literally fell asleep. But when I woke up and I saw the score, I was like, how did this happen? How could you lose to the worst team in the NFL while going up 17-0 at halftime? And that leads to me with the conclusion that the Rams would beat the Eagles because Carson Wentz got sacked like 8 times last week. He had no time to throw with tons of pressure on him, and he didn't make the best of his throws either. And on top of that, the Eagles are piled with injuries after injuries after injuries on offense. And that is something that as a 49ers fan, it's something that I'm seeing every day already. And it's going to hurt your team more than it's going to push your team to a better momentum in the next following weeks. So I think the Eagles are really going to struggle in the following weeks, especially after that week 1 loss to Washington.
So, Isaiah, we have so far Trevor and Furman on board for L.A. taking on Philadelphia this week. That'd be the L.A. Rams, not Trevor's team, and the team that used to play in San Diego. What say you?
I'm going to go with the L.A. Rams because I just think that the Rams are a better team than the Philadelphia Eagles. You guys mentioned that Carson Wentz, his offensive line is garbage. They didn't give him any time to throw the football. Also, his weapon, a lot of them are injured. Zach Ertz, the tight end, he doesn't know what's going on with the offense. He's not really involved in the offense. I think he only had 3 catches last week, and then after the game, he was complaining about how he didn't really get that many catches, and he doesn't really know what his role is in the offense. Philly is just a mess, man. So I'm going to go with the Rams. I think the Rams will go in there. They're going to avoid that West Coast team going to the East Coast team slump. And I believe they're going to go in. They're going to run the football really good against this Eagles team. And Jared Goff's going to have a very efficient day, and they're going to win this game. And I'm going to give a score about, I'll go with 31-20.
All in favor of the Rams winning just by virtue of the Eagles having so many injuries stacking up like wood on the sidewalk pretty much. It's been, and that's been, I think, guys, the Eagles' kryptonite has been injuries over the past several years and crippling injuries to a lot of the big name guys. I'll go with the Rams as well, and I think that they pick up where they left off with that great game. And also they just signed Robert Woods to a 4-year extension as well today. So again, folks, that is our thoughts and our picks for our Pigskin Pick'Em. We'll do this, folks, every show, again, with 2 college games and 2 pro games throughout the course of the college and NFL season. With that, folks, it's now time to jump into tonight's Power 5. All right, folks, it is Power 5 time on the MI6 Sports Network as we get ready to wrap up Season 2 and Episode 8 of No BS on this Friday night. With that, folks, in honor of the LA Clippers once again blowing a 3-1 series lead, we are going to, folks, rank our top 5 or Power 5 biggest choke jobs in professional sports since the 1990s. And we didn't go too far back in time by virtue of all of us being very young and immature young men. Trevor, we will start with you for your Power 5, for your top 5 biggest choke jobs in sports. What do you got for us?
All right, I got to start with my honorable mention. I'm attacking Alabama with using Ole Miss back in 2015, where Ole Miss ended up upsetting Alabama, who was number 2 at the time. So it was very early on in the college football season. But yes, Ole Miss beat Alabama 43-37. So that was my honorable mention. But now let me get into my Power 5. Starting with number 5, we have the Falcons blowing the Super Bowl 28-3, and the Patriots come back winning that Super Bowl. That is the first choke moment of my list. I know it's very low, but the others get worse as time goes on. Obviously, the teams that blow for my number 4 is the teams that end up blowing the 3-1 lead. So I'm looking at you, Clippers and Warriors. You're on this list for that spot. Though, yes, that's bad to end up choking a series like that. But like I said, the list gets worse. Number 3, we're going back to 2017 and the land before time where Clemson played Syracuse, and Syracuse upset number 2 Clemson. Score 27-24 Syracuse. That was the point where Brian Kelly got injured and Syracuse was in control for the rest of the game. But Syracuse dominated the first half, but Clemson was trying to make a surge, but it wasn't enough because you're the number 2 team in the nation at the time, and you choked the game away. Get out of here. Number 2 on this list is a very good number 2. The Georgia Bulldogs in the national championship game, blowing it to Alabama with a backup quarterback at halftime. How do you blow a game to a backup quarterback since your team was already steamrolling Alabama, putting them in place and showing why you deserve the national title, and you choked it away to a backup quarterback? Get out of here. Last but not least, this past football season in 2019, I'm going to Oklahoma Baylor, where Baylor was destroying Oklahoma the entire first half. And what happens, ladies and gentlemen? Jalen Hurts makes a comeback and defends his Oklahoma Sooners. But the point is, you were controlling the entire game, and you end up blowing it. You could send the number 7 team in the nation away, but they come back, and you make yourself look bad. That's a choke in my eyes. You can't blow this league like that. You just can't blow leagues. And that's why this was ranked number 1 on my list.
Disclaimer, folks, the losing horn sound effects are only because it's utter failure of these teams blowing these leads. So that is Trevor's Power 5. If Isaiah's internet will let him speak, we'll go to him now for his Power 5 for biggest choke jobs in sports. Isaiah, what do you got for us?
All right. So, first of all, I'm sorry for all the internet stupid stuff. Xfinity has been crap all these years. Never, ever, ever get Xfinity, ladies and gentlemen. But that's besides the point. Here, my Power 5, I'm going to go from 5 to 1, 5 being not really that big of a choke, 1 being the biggest choke of all. Number 5 has got to be something that was really painful for me this past February, and that was my 49ers choking Super Bowl 54 to the Kansas City Chiefs. In that game, the 49ers had a 20-10 lead in the fourth quarter, and I think we got an interception on the Chiefs. I felt like the 49ers were in control of that game. I was like, oh yeah, we got it, man. Our 6 Lombardi trophies coming home. Redemption from that time we lost to the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan is Bill Walsh 2.0, like I've been saying. I said all that stuff, and then just to see all of that go up in flames, I was so pissed. I was so depressed. I was just so sad. It really hurt me bad. And man, I was like Patrick Mahomes. did his Mahomes magic against my Niners, and unfortunately, my Niners lost that Super Bowl. So I gotta say that's like number 5 on my list. Number 4 has got to be Manny Pacquiao. This is for you boxing fans. Manny Pacquiao.
Like, I see what?
Yes.
What?
Yes, Manny Pacquiao 5-6 years ago faced Juan Manuel Marquez in their 4th fight, and Manny Pacquiao was actually dominating the first 5 rounds of that fight. I had him winning 5-0 over Marquez, and he was just dominating that 6th round as well. But Juan Manuel Marquez with a lucky punch in that 6th round to knock Manny Pacquiao out and pull off one of the great boxing upsets in history. That's my number 4. My number 3 has got to be one that I'm going to revel a lot in, and that is Ohio State. Back 17, and I know Trevor's going to leave the set, but Ohio State, they were 7-0. They came off a big time win the previous week, and they go into Purdue, a team that a lot of people had overlooked and looked down, and they laid an absolute egg. They got blown out 49-20, thus dashing their college football playoff hopes. I'm sorry, Trevor, I just had to bring that up because that was a big choke on Ohio State's part. Number 2 has got to be what happened past Tuesday, and that was the Los Angeles Clippers blowing a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets and losing that series. You know, coming into the season, the media had been telling us for months how the Clippers were so great, how strong they were, how undefeated, like how unbeatable they were, how nobody would be able to score upon them, how this was probably the greatest team assembled in the history of mankind. And what happened? Kawhi Leonard, the guy that the media heralded as the next Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and probably passing LeBron James this year, chokes in the biggest game of his career by going for 14 points in Game 7, absolutely unexcusable and absolutely shivering in that Game 7, and the Clippers choking Game 7 against the Nuggets, choking 3-1. Happiest time of my life because I'm a huge Lakers fan, and I hated the media talking all this good stuff about the Clippers throughout the summer and the fall and stuff like that. So I was really happy. And last but not least, it's got to be what happened to Steven's Minnesota Vikings. Unfortunately, we don't have the clip. If we did have it, I would have definitely played it. But it's Blair Walsh missing a 27-yard field goal against the Seattle Seahawks in that NFC wild card game that would have definitely given the Minnesota Vikings the win. I remember watching that game. I was so pissed off that no, I wasn't so pissed, but I was really happy that Blair Walsh, the Vikings had driven down the field. I was like, yeah, he's going to make this field goal, and the Seahawks would lose this game. They would be out of the playoffs and stuff like that. And unfortunately, my dreams crumbled, and, Blair Walsh is going to live in infamy forever for that field goal. We're still on set, by the way, after that Ohio State Purdue thing.
I thought you were going to mention Iowa, but
it was going to be one of the two, Trevor.
Or Baker Mayfield, so I don't know which one you were going to go for.
Oh, man. All right. So there is Isaiah with his Power 5. Furman, how about you again? Ranking your top 5 biggest choke jobs in sports. What do you got for us, man?
All right. I might be a little bit biased here because this is based on my biggest choke jobs I've ever seen or experienced. Number 5, it's got to be the LA Dodgers. You guys have been an embarrassment of a franchise since 2013. You guys won your division almost every year, and yet every single time in the playoffs, you lose to some no-name team or some team that you were supposed to have an easy matchup against.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Sorry, John.
I've seen this way too many times with the Dodgers. You guys are making our division look embarrassingly bad. You guys lost to the Cubs, and then you lost to the Mets, and like literally that's should be like a no-brainer there. You could have beaten them easily. And then the Astros, I would give you a pass for that one, but I don't know because you just lost to the Red Sox a year later. So as a Giants fan, I can say that every time we've won our division, we've made it all the way in the playoffs. But how about you, Dodgers? You've won your divisions for like what 6 straight years, and you've done nothing. But as a Giants fan, we've won our division in 2010, 2012, 2014, every 2 years. But we've still made it to the playoffs way further than you guys did. And we've won 3 titles in that span already. So that's why I have the Dodgers at number 5. So number 4, I've got to give this game to the Super Bowl in 2016. Atlanta, you're up 28-3. There's no reason to choke a 28-3 lead against the Patriots. I don't care if the Patriots have probably the greatest quarterback of all time, but if you're up 28-3, and I'm really embarrassed by this personally because their offensive coordinators are head coach now for the team that I'm a fan of. You got to get some good play calling there and at least take the time clock out in the fourth quarter especially. How could you give the Patriots so many possessions to come back from 20-3 and finally win in overtime? That does not make any sense to me at all. So at number 3, I'm going to have to give this to the Michigan versus Michigan State game in, I believe it was 2015. Yep. This game was, you guys had that game in the bag already. Easy win. You had Connor Cook and the Michigan State offense completely stunned. Your defense pretty much showed up and took over the entire game. And at that last play, you literally had 1 play left to close out the game. You botched that punt and you allowed Michigan State to recover that all the way to the end zone too. Michigan should have had a big season that year. And I believe that was the reason why Michigan lost to Ohio State that year. You guys had all of your momentum ruined. And this guy's face, this Michigan fan, he's the perfect example of how Michigan's second half of the season turned out. And that's been that way ever since for Jim Harbaugh in his second half of his tenure with Michigan. All right, so number 2, this has been very disappointing. I've thought about this a lot. It was the 49ers Super Bowl loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. You guys are up 20-10, and I hate to bring you back, Kyle, but you got to have better play calling in the fourth quarter. You guys literally had 0 first downs, all 3 and outs, and you allowed Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes to score 2 quick touchdowns in like 2 minutes to come back and win the game. You guys need to understand, as a 49ers fan, you guys all you guys needed to do was kick a field goal or something and waste like 6 minutes off the clock. But you did nothing but punt the ball, and then Garoppolo overthrows Emmanuel Sanders and allows the 49ers to just collapse on a turnover on downs. And then that game-winning interception at the end, like that pretty much sealed it. Yeah, that was very disappointing, and I can never, ever imagine the 49ers going back to the Super Bowl again in decades. If they're going to have to take the 6th Lombardi trophy, you've disappointed me twice. First time in 2013 with against the Ravens, and now against the Chiefs. So before I go on to number 1, I got to have my honorable mentions here. The first one is the Houston Oilers choking their playoff game in 1993 while being up 35-3. This has been known as the biggest choke in NFL history. And you've done it not to Jim Kelly, but you did it against their backup quarterback, Frank Reich. That's right, Frank Reich. You got my shout out. I know I picked the Vikings over the Colts, but you did your job there, and you stepped up to the game in the playoffs in an extremely contested game and a very, very challenging win against the Houston Oilers in 1993 in the playoffs. And my second honorable mention is sadly in 2016, the Warriors, 2015-2016 season, the Warriors blew that 3-1 lead to the Cleveland Cavs. That should have been an easy second ring for you, but Draymond Green had to get suspended for no reason. And then at the end of the day, Steph and Clay, your legacy is probably overshadowed by KD now, ever since he joined you guys, ever since your 3-1 loss. I don't know what to say, but hopefully next season you'll step up your game and redeem yourselves as you recover from your injuries. So at number 1, this has got to be one of the worst chokes I've ever seen. And I've got to give this to no other than Doc Rivers blowing 3-1 leads. The first one in 2002 against the Pistons when he coached with Orlando. And then in 2015 and 2020, you literally blew it with the LA Clippers. You shouldn't have lost to the Houston Rockets. You guys had all the momentum, and somehow you literally just choked in the rest of the 3 games. And in 2020, right now, you have arguably the best player, defensive player of the year, 2 times Finals MVP. He's done it in 2 different teams with the Spurs and the Raptors, and you still can't win against the Denver Nuggets, even after being up 3-1 with Kawhi. Now I know Kawhi has a lot to blame in Game 7, but what about your bench? Your quote unquote the best bench in the NBA. Where were they against the Nuggets? They literally didn't show up. You also have Pandemic P doing nothing but score 10 points every playoff game, going 4 of 17 every game. Where was your regular season? Where was all those, games when you've averaged 28 points with OKC, 22 points with the Clippers, and shooting 40% from 3? What happened in those last 3 games against the Nuggets, man? Like, you even had a 20-point lead. I believe it was a 19-point lead in Game 6 at halftime, and somehow you still lose that game. And in the second half, you can barely score. Like, in my mind, I can't think of any other series as bad as this one. The Clippers. I know I'm a Lakers fan, but I still have to give a harsh reality to you on this one. That was a no-brainer. That series, you guys seriously collapsed, and that was one of the worst playoff performances I've ever seen in NBA history.
You like that? You like that?
That'll be the one that gets talked about a lot over the next several years, I think, to come with that one. Fellas, I actually have 2 honorable mentions before I get into my Power 5. Again, folks, Power 5 tonight is our top 5 biggest choke jobs in sports since the 1990s began. Guys, my first honorable mention was actually one in my top 5, but I have chosen to put it as an honorable mention. Reggie Miller single-handedly eliminating the dumpster fire that is the New York Knicks. At one point in time back in the late 90s where Reggie went on that very impressive stretch of scoring all those points in a very condensed amount of time, and even, of course, did the infamous choking symbol or sign to the one and only Spike Lee. So Reggie's an honorable mention. And also, guys, my other one, the Patriots losing the Super Bowl after having an undefeated season until Plaxico Burress catches the game-winning touchdown after, of course, the infamous or famous David Tyree helmet catch. That is by far my 2 honorable mentions. But, guys, my Power 5, though, my first one at number 5 may surprise you. Virginia men's basketball becoming the first number 1 seed to lose to a number 16 seeded ball club in March Madness. And it wasn't even close. UMBC blowing out UAV, and that had like 100+ record in O. And UVA had to go and screw things up for the number 1 seed. So I'm going to go with UVA losing as a number 1 seed for the first time ever in college basketball history that a number 1 seed had lost to a number 16 seeded ball club. Number 4, again, Michigan State, the muff snap that, of course, became the very infamous meme, of course, on the web of the missed punt by the Wolverines, recovered by Sparty in the end zone to upset, or not upset, but take down the Wolverines in the Big House, nonetheless, which I think is even worse. if you are a Michigan football fan. So that is number 4. Number 3, sadly for Isaiah, it is hockey related. The San Jose Sharks blowing a 3-0 lead against the Los Angeles Kings in the 2014 Stanley Cup playoffs. Literally a 3-0 deficit, and the Kings come back to win 4 in a row and on their way to the Stanley Cup championship that year. Even as an Anaheim Ducks fan, that one still makes me laugh, as I despise both the Kings and the San Jose Sharks as well. Number 2 on my list, the Red Sox coming back from a 0-3 deficit against the Yankees in the 2004 ALCS. I believe Christy Wilson actually wrote that in with hers as well. And also my number 1 is also 28-3 with New England coming back against the Atlanta Falcons. And also the Yankees blow the 3-0 lead, and also the Pats losing to the Giants in Super Bowl 42. And also one more, fellas. How about Holly Holm beating Ronda Rousey? That's a pretty good one. I think that could be on the list as well. And also, how about the Texans blowing the game last year against the Chiefs in the AFC divisional playoff round as another one? Okay, Isaiah is reacting. Something is not going right. Isaiah, what do you got for us, bud?
You just had to open up the wound again, Khaled. The Sharks choking the 3-0 lead might be the worst thing I've ever seen in sports. Because that year, I remember I was so pumped up. I had my Sharks jersey on or T-shirt on, and I was just like, yeah, the Sharks are going to the Stanley Cup. The Sharks are going to the Stanley Cup. I'm now in the Bay, so that means the Sharks are going to reverse that trend and, go and have playoff success. And they were up 3-0. And I was telling my friends, yeah, see, I told you the trend is reversed. And then all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. The Sharks go down 3-0. And I have stopped watching hockey ever since then. No more hockey for me at all ever since that moment.
Sorry, but you had to know it was going to be coming eventually. So that is where we're at, folks. With that now, guys, it is time to dive into everyone's final thoughts. Nothing new with us having a 2-hour show either, gents. It is final thoughts time here, episode 8, season 2, no BS. Trevor, we'll start with you. Final thoughts for the show as we head into the weekend. What do you got for us?
I love that final thought segment. I'd be like, my answer is this on Jeopardy. And I have a whiteboard, so I can just write my final thoughts on a whiteboard. But I think I forgot another honorable mention that you mentioned college basketball. I remember the time when Duke lost to Lehigh, 15.
Oh, yes.
Number 2. So
yeah.
I need to put that on my honorable mention. I forgot about that completely, but there's so much.
How about one more? Florida Gulf Coast, Dunk City, many years ago, too.
Oh, my.
Wow. Yes. But please continue.
But yeah, I think this weekend is going to be interesting in the amount of sports we have, though there's no true controversy matchups where it's be like, oh, it's a coin flip, but it's nice to have football a second week. And, things are still going through. More of the Power 5 schools slowly revamping. I think next weekend, I believe the 26th, the SEC starts up again, so we can see some Alabama, Georgia, and all the boys in the SEC get things underway in about a week's time. And then a month later, the Big Ten comes rolling back in October 24th. So excited for that. So sports are getting back to somewhat to be normal again, and I love to see it.
And hopefully soon, the Pac-12, per reports, looking at a November 7th start date for their fall and football season. So we'll see how those talks progress. Isaiah, how about you? Final thoughts for tonight's show?
Final thoughts is I want to congratulate our Los Angeles Lakers on just smothering the Denver Nuggets tonight. The Lakers, Anthony Davis absolutely went off, 33 points in 27 minutes of play. He was just dominant. He needs to be like that for all the games in the series. I also want to congratulate my Oakland A's on clinching a playoff berth. Well, it hasn't happened yet, but it's going to happen because the A's had a 2-game magic number on clinching the postseason berth. And the Oakland A's, they're up right now on the San Francisco Giants 6-0 heading into the 7th inning. They needed a Mariners loss as well to clinch it tonight. The Mariners have lost to Callan's Padres. Callan's Padres beat the heck out of them. So it looks like the A's are going to
They're losing. Game's not over yet. Don't jinx it.
Yes, I don't want to jinx it, but it looks like the A's are going to clinch it tonight. And also, the Houston Astros lost tonight 6-3. So if the A's win against the Giants, then the A's will be just 2 games magic number from clinching the American League West for the first time since 2012. So very, very good stuff. But, you know, it was a great show, man. Sorry the show kind of ran a little bit too long. We had a lot of stuff to talk about, though, but it was very, very fun. And I just want to welcome Furman onto the No BS team, and I can't wait for this new revamped No BS moving forward.
And with that, Furman, thanks again, man. First night on the job here with the No BS team. We thank you for, of course, being here and for being with us now every Friday night. How about your final thoughts for the show and, for that matter, whatever we may have missed as we head into the weekend?
Well, I think you can see the picture here. This is my final thought of the day. Giannis should not have won the MVP. This guy choked in the playoffs against the Miami Heat. And this is one of my campaigns that I've been arguing against for a long time. You know, as my final thoughts for this segment, I think starting next season, you got to have the MVP voting carry on to the playoffs instead of just the regular season. Like, you got your Giannis player here. Yeah, he's been really good at the regular season. He balled out. But in the playoffs, especially in the fourth quarter, you shoot like 0-2, 0 points, like game 1, game 2 against the Heat. That's not the MVP player that I see in the regular season. You've got to be better than that. And by this, I have to say LeBron got robbed here. I think he should have been the MVP. I don't know why Giannis won the votes by majority. Like, it was pretty surprising when I saw that. I thought it would be a close race, but hey, it was the regular season and everybody was hyping this guy up. I got to give 1,000% credit to Eric Spoelstra and the Miami Heat, man, because these guys have been balling out and they've been killing it in the Eastern Conference. It's time for Giannis to go somewhere else. I don't think the Bucks would fit him. I know he said in a press conference that he wants to stay in the Bucks and get the ring with them, but you gotta find some other good player to help carry you out of the fourth quarter. Probably go to the Warriors someday. If that's gonna happen, you know, who knows? It's gonna be crazy. All right. So with that being said, I'd like to thank all of you guys for having me out here. It's been a pleasure to join you guys today, and I can't wait to come back next week for this revamped No BS segment.
Absolutely, folks. And again, Furman Lee, part of the new No BS team, due to, again, our new and improved and revamped lineup. Mr. Wang writes in, Lakers and 4. The King will have 4 rings very soon. And also says it's a regular season award. They call him playoff LeBron for a reason, not like Furman calling Paul George Pandemic P. That was absolutely comical. And Christy, her final thoughts. This show is awesome. That's great to hear. And that's more than anything else. That's why we're here for you folks. As well, we appreciate all the support, folks. My final thoughts and prayers to the family of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who sadly, folks, passed away today at the age of 87 after a courageous bout with cancer. Wishing her and her family all the best during this very troublesome time right here and right now. And also, folks, final thoughts. Isaiah and I back tomorrow and Sunday night for the night shift. Again, we had a very great first night on Tuesday. Again, folks, tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, 10 o'clock Pacific time to recap all the big news and big plays and big games of the day. And, of course, we'll also as well talk about some of the big games and also catch you up on all the things that, in fact, went on over the course of your day in sports. With that, folks, thanks for hanging on this Friday night. We thank you all very much. And again, truly and humbly appreciate your support and for viewing us and for hanging out with us over the last hour or 2 hours or so here on No BS. Before Trevor Williams, Isaiah Leung, and the new guy, Furman Lee, my name is Cal McClurk saying goodnight from San Diego and from across the entire country. We'll see you folks back here next Friday for No BS. And, of course, tune in to, of course, tomorrow and Sunday for the night shift, 10 p.m. Pacific time, 1 a.m. Eastern on the East Coast back here on the 6th tomorrow and on Sunday. Till then, folks, good night. Have a great weekend and bye-bye.
Yeah. 3-6, Mafia. Whoa. Hey. Whoa. Say what? Whoa. 3-6, Mafia. It's going down. Y'all know what time it is. We ain't playing with you. In the club, in the street.